Hi, okay. Hello everyone, and welcome to today's session of developing engineers to become future leaders of the water industry. So this webinar is actually brought together by the Singapore University of Technology and Design, SUTD, in partnership with the Singapore Water Association's Young Water Professionals. My name is Wei-Zhou, so I will be the moderator, or you can say I'm the host for today. And I myself am also part of the Young Water Professional Committee. Okay, just waiting for a few stragglers to come into this webinar. All right, so let's get this lovely Friday afternoon started. So today's speaker will be Kay, who is the Vice President for the Singapore Water Association's Young Water Professional Committee. So he's actually an Associate Director from Aecom Singapore and has more than 12 years of progressive work experience in water engineering and urban infrastructure projects, and in development sectors of water, sanitation, and environment. So he has held technical and managerial roles for multi-sectional projects, being involved in the entire project cycle from concept to design and implementation. All right, so without further ado, over to you, Kay.
Thanks, Rizul. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining in. It's a lovely Wednesday afternoon after hopefully your break period in the university. The agenda for today is going to be talking about what does SWA and YWP does, the water industry itself in Singapore, and also giving it an overview of what are the kind of project roles, what are the kind of works that water and civil environmental professionals can get in Singapore itself. And the last process is giving some idea about how you can get professional qualifications as a water engineer or as a water non-engineer, and other options, which is beyond the professional engineer, which we more commonly hear and see about in Singapore. So the approach is going to be to give you some guidance, some information on how engineering and non-engineering graduates can come into the industry. What can you expect, and how do you grow within the within your career path going ahead? So a quick introduction about the association itself, followed by an overview of the works that are being done. What are the sectors and pathways for students? How does a professional behave in a project? What kind of roles are you expected to play? And the application for some of the chartered that are there currently called out by the Institution of Engineers, which will help you in gaining some qualification that is equivalent, if not better than professionals, and in future you can use for your development growth as well. The Singapore Water Association was actually established back in 2004, and the agenda of it was to develop private sector players to come and develop Singapore as a water hub. It also has backing from public sector, especially from PUB, and the parties work together to ensure that the latest water technology, the latest water drivers come out from Singapore. Being a water scarce nation, this is definitely a must, and an industry which will always grow and be stable in the years ahead. The association itself plays an effort to develop and bring new startups, develop and bring new professionals into the industry, and get people to engage and network with each other. So it's been there for and doing quite well for quite some time. YWP, which is the Young Water Professional Network itself, was established in 2015. And the aim of this committee is basically to support efforts by the parent organization, which is SWA, and get more of the youngsters involved in the works that are to be done to ensure that the career pathway, which most students come out from universities and colleges are aware of. It's just not about a particular agency. It's not just about a particular contractor or a consultant. It's a whole ecosystem where you can actually go and have a fulfilling career for the times ahead. SWA itself is composed of various panels, and it has its own chair groups, it has its own networks. As you can see over here, there are various parties and members who come together and give expert advice. Sustainability, water resources, wastewater usage, contaminated land, environmental education, coastal groups. These are all established groups where you can come in, you can network, you can hear from expert speakers and get involved in various activities. We hear a lot about climate change in the current scenario, also about going sustainable and being resilient. All of these items have actually been looked into with the foresight of the experienced people, with the people who are in charge, and they have actually come together to talk out, to share ideas, to exchange what needs to be done and how can it be done, not only in the Singapore context, but also in the regional and at a larger level. So just a quick overview of what Singapore does. We are all very well aware of the 4 taps on which Singapore relies for its water supply, which is basically the clean water, which is collected in the reservoirs, water which comes from Malaysia, from the Johor, water which is treated from wastewater, that's new water, and the latest in the queue is desalinated water, which is treating seawater to be potable uses. What we also see over here is the water demand in Singapore is currently around 500 million gallons a day, which is actually a huge amount. Most of it, more than 50% right now, is actually going into non-potable uses. And potable uses, home sector, is only around 45% at present. However, going ahead in the next 15 years, 20 years, the non-water sector is going to take up more than 2/3 of the supplies, non-potable uses, which is about 70%. So the aim is actually to take up all of the wastewater and convert it into new water, as well as combine with desalinated water to supply the majority of Singapore's water future demand. This is especially pertinent because water from ground sources or water from rainfalls is going to get affected from climate changes, from impacts of greater populations coming in future. Therefore, it's very important to have technology on the side and be ahead of the curve so that you are in the forefront of getting the latest technology, ensuring that the supplies are there adequately in not just Singapore, but also in other countries wherever work is being done. Why is water important, and why is it that YWP is looking at it in this way? This is a chart which basically shows the 17 Sustainable Development Goals that the United Nations has highlighted. SDG 6 is about clean water and sanitation. But when you look at these 17 sustainability goals, they are all intermixed. For example, rivers go across boundaries. There is a potential for transboundary impact. There's a potential for water being used by a certain party more than the next party because it's going down. Will it have an impact on the quality of life? Will it have an impact on how partnerships are made across borders? Will it have an impact on how much consumption can be done? We do know that agriculture takes the bulk of water. So if waters are stopped or if waters are controlled in a way, is it going to have an impact for the better or worse on future food supplies? Therefore, the UN has come out with these 17 goals in which water is actually among one of the top priorities. It is a sector which affects every other sector, and therefore the remit of this particular sector is quite wide. We can't just be looking at clean water or wastewater or industrial water as a standalone. It impacts a lot of other sectors as well, which also means that the potential for growth in this sector is a lot. Anyone and everyone can play a part in it. And I will touch upon the various roles further down into the slide deck. Within SWA, there's a lot of work that is being done for activities and trainings, as well as encouraging networking. So there are professional trainings that are arranged for working professionals, for young graduates. YWP ourselves are involved in activities in which we try to get the youngsters to come together and talk out. There are individual webinars also which are arranged by SWA, and if you go down to the SWA website, which I have referenced over here, you can at least see future upcoming trainings that have been done. Of course, you can also have a look at past trainings so that you can see what other work can be done, and it comes on a regular basis, so you can sign up for those activities as well. The Singapore International Water Week is a biannual event, and it's actually quite a big success story coming out from Singapore. A lot of water related works, water activities are centered around the 3-day events. In the Singapore International Water Week, what we have is industry nights. We have Young Water Leaders Summit, which is co-organized by YWP. You have online webinars, you have physical webinars, you have sharing of sessions, new product technologies are announced, and more works and technologies come out for what can be done in future. How can things be done in a better way? And there are people who come from various backgrounds, be it engineers, be it non-engineers, be it policy holders, be it public sector professionals from other countries, even from venture capitalists, from finance sides, because there are people who are interested in investing in these industries from a long-term perspective. So what exactly does water career entail? What is it that civil environmental professionals do? What is it that water professionals do? Basically, there are 3 main roles or 3 main parties who form part of any project. What you actually have is a developer, which can be the owner of the project, which can be a builder, which can be an institution or a company that is investing into the project, that's going to be the owner of the project. The next party is a designer. The designer can be an in-house. That means the developer has his own team to come out with its own plans and then get the consultations done. Or it can be external parties, that is consultants, who come out with the planning, project management, what kind of structural, what kind of process, what kind of features, infrastructure comes inside that particular development that the developer wants to set up. And you have the builder. The builder can be a part of the developer again, or it can be a standalone, which is a contractor. The builder will actually be the key person who goes and constructs or develops the idea, the design that the developer and the designer come out with. These are 3 broad parties. Supplementary to it, you will have specialists, you will have sub and ancillary services, people who provide products, people who provide specialist services, people who come in and do the coordination part, people who are there for supervision, for getting insurances, for ensuring that there's adequate capital coming inside for the project, people who are going to maintain it. So there is a whole ecosystem that is developed around any project. And that's the same for any water sector project as well. There are different roles that when you come into the industry, you can take over. For example, as a consultant, as a designer, you provide professional services. You come out with structural designs, you come out with process designs, you come out with infrastructure layouts. You can come as a coordinator. As a coordinator, there are multiple parties. If you are in a project, you have to engage not just with internal parties, but also external parties, such as engaging with the client, engaging with authorities, getting utilities, talking to people who are not based on site or who are ancillary to support, such as BIM. Building infrastructure modeling is very important. And going ahead, BIM is going to be one of the key items in which the projects become more effective and optimal. We try to solve problems before they become problems at a later date. You can take over a role as a project manager. A project manager basically is the main person, is a key person in leading the whole project. It's a senior role. You have to manage not just work progress, but you also have to look at contract administration. You also have to look at ancillary parts, whether materials are coming on site, whether the work is on schedule, whether there are any issues that can be possibly foreseen. How does project delivery together with quality, together with safety go hand in hand? There can be a role for drafters as well, who basically work on multiple softwares, coming out with drawings, AutoCAD and MicroStations and Revit. These are bases on which drawings need to be submitted, need to be prepared. It's the modern equivalent of taking up your drafting papers and scales and coming out with hand-drawn sketches which need to be revised once there's a comment that comes inside. But it's very important, especially if you're looking at multi-dimensional drawings, which is becoming more and more common now as structures, as buildings become more complex. You can be a process engineer. These are mostly from a chemical background. They are also from industrial background. They're also from production, mechanical, electrical background people. Looking at treatment plants, how do you set up a traditional water treatment plant? How do we set up a wastewater treatment plant, which extracts water that eventually becomes new water, or which extracts waste and then is sent out to the landfills? There's also scope for desalination, and as I mentioned, Singapore is an island. There's a huge scope for desalination in the times ahead, as costs of setting up a desalination plant come down. It's only a matter of time before a country which has a coastline sets up one in its own boundaries. And it's going to be the way ahead in most countries, especially in Asia, especially in Africa. You can be a sustainability expert. If you're not into structures, by all means, go into sustainable designs, which is SUDs or WSUDs, water sensitive urban designs, setting up bioswales, designing water retention ponds. If you're not into infrastructure, you can go into green mark or LEED, which is looking more into buildings. How do you make it more efficient? How do you reduce the environmental footprint? All these can be done. Of course, you have specialists as well who will input and be a part of your project itself. Insurances are very important in any water sector project, in any civil or environmental project. They will determine how expensive a premium needs to be put up on a project which is going to be developed. They are the people who are going to be paying out if there's any accident on site or if there's any damage done. At the same time, they are also the people who will take up the money if there's a fault on part of the team itself. Investment advisors, you are doing engineering or you are doing science, you're doing any field, but you have a bent towards finance. By all means, go ahead, stick to the roots. You can come back as an investment advisor and tell how much of financing should be done for a particular project if it is private financed. Even in public sector financing, there's a scope for such a person to come in and tell what would be the returns be like. Everyone wants profit, especially if it's a non-public sector project. Specialists can also come as geotechnical experts who look at the soil itself. They can come as modelers, people who do hydraulic modeling, looking at rainfall charts, looking at frequencies, how much is the water that needs to be channeled out. Very important people. All these are roles where graduates can come out, fit into, and grow further. I have done a short compilation of a typical sectors within the industry and some of the key players for referencing what are the kind of companies, what are the kind of works that are done, and who all can be approached. For example, if you're keen on serving the public sector, PUB, LTA, and Parks, MPA, huge organizations, massive amounts of works that are being done. Not every project will be big, but there's growth over there. And you have a learning session. Once the learning's there, the growth is always there. You can join consultants, Aecom, Surbana, Jacobs, Black and Witch, all of the bigger consultants are there. Even you have regional consultants, you have smaller consultants. It's how you want to grow that's the key. If you're interested in going direct to builders, you have a knack for working on site, you like to have tongs and hammers to work with. Well, look at the players in the market, Samvo, Zublin, they're all there. Developers who can also be owners, who can also be contractors, who have their own management teams, Capital Land, UL, these are the big players. You can, if you're keen on continuing education, you want to get more knowledge or you want to understand the finer intricacies further, by all means, join research as doctorates, research fellows, or become dedicated researchers within either a university or in an organization. NTU has got NEWRI, which is the New Water Research, and US Deltares. These are companies as well as universities which have their own departments, and they will look into the research and development models. Perhaps some of you are interested in policy. You want to set the guidance on how things should be done or what should be done better in the future. Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy. You can look at World Bank, Asian Development Bank, even the government of Singapore itself. Stakeholders, these are very critical stakeholders because they plan, they decide how things should be done or what should be done in a better way. They take feedbacks from all stakeholders and look at what is going wrong, what's going right, and what can be done better. Financial institutions, look at World Bank again, look at local banks like DBS, look at venture capitalists. That's a niche, especially if it comes from finance. You can look at advisory firms as well. People like KPMG, PwC. You can look, if you're looking for something new, something innovative, you want to have your own product to be like sold or developed, which does things better. Xylem, Energia, Waterome, these are all companies which have entrepreneurs, which have big developers and research wings. You can join them as well. Then there are other parts like philanthropic institutions, non-government organizations, disaster relief. All of these have a role in which you can come in and play a part. And all of these are available with local offices in Singapore and of course in the regional locations where work is actually going to be done. So the sector is quite wide. The point being that it's not a very closeted or very focused that only this kind of work can be done or only a certain group of people can come in. Everyone has a role to play. Everyone has a role to grow into. A lot of people actually question about water and environmental as to what is the growth or what are the professional qualifications. I would like to share that the Institution of Engineers in Singapore has actually got a couple of programs, which are the chartered programs, in which both engineering and non-engineering graduates can actually join in and go through the process of applications, be interviewed, be reviewed, and get qualified. For example, I'm sharing over here is for the chartered engineer. Now, chartered engineer was set up by IES to support and ancillary to the professional engineering program, which has already been there for the longest period of time. So when we look at chartered engineer, the step-by-step process is you have to make an application, which is quite comprehensive, and I will touch on what needs to be done in the next slide. It will go through a professional review. So it's peer reviewed. It's people who are already chartered engineers in a specific field who will look at what you are submitting, what are your qualifications, what are your experiences, how do you show that you are able to tackle a certain situation, mandatory competencies, looking at certain problems, looking at certain better ways that can be done. And they will give their comments. If the comment passes, they deem you good enough, they will call you for an interview. It's usually held by 2 or 3 experts in the field. And then the application is either approved or they will give you some feedback, and you have to come back at your completion of your competencies for a second round if you feel like it. Chartered engineer is actually looking at targeting those sectors which are not covered under the civil, electrical, and mechanical, such as you have a sector for infrastructure, you have a sector for process, you have a sector for water and environment, you have a sector for aeronautical, you have a sector for transportation, quite wide. If you go on the Chartered Engineers website, there's a whole range of specifics that you can grow into, how you can look into for mentors. There's a list which is maintained over there as well. What kind of competencies, what kind of submission periods are being looked at. Generally, the process is about a minimum of 3 months. It can take slightly longer depending on conditions and the number of applications that come inside. You also have recently launched just last week, Chartered Engineering Technologist and Technician Certification Schemes. So these are meant for those people who have been on the ground. They are looking for specific technical skill sets to be developed going ahead. Again, these are all in coordination with the Chartered Engineering program in support of the professional engineering program, and with the eventual goal that water-based engineers, process-based engineers have a qualification, have a professional standing, which will be grown in future, which will be required in future, and can be used for submissions going ahead. What exactly does such an application require? First and foremost, you need to know that there are a list of questions that need to be addressed, together with what is your background, what is your experience. And it's important that wherever you have worked, wherever you have studied, is covered and recognized by someone whom you have worked under. That person can be your mentor. That person can be someone who confirms that whatever you say you have done, whatever you say you have achieved, whatever are the goals that you had set up and gained are delivered. You'll have to share stuff such as how did you settle a dispute on site, or questions like what did you do better compared to previous projects in any way? Were you seconded for a certain project? What kind of works had you done? Did you undergo trainings? That's again an important part, because it's not just about work. So what people are looking for in your applications are, well, you have a work profile, but what about your continued learning? Are you going for webinars? Are you going for courses? Are you going for standalone site visits, technical visits? It can be managerial visits, just a combination of what all have you been doing. Always show what you have done. I did this. My contribution in the project was this. I worked with these teams or with these people to get this certain goal attained. That's an important part whenever a submission is being made, whenever an application is being done. 2 parts for any interview when it comes up. A, you have introductions, what will be called into the key technical part of the interview. Give a short background of what all you have achieved, like a short presentation, or give your personal history on whatever you have submitted in your career report. What kind of projects have you done? Just give a quick summary in the interview, and how did you reach to the current stage? The second part is more of question and answer. So the interviewers will ask on certain aspects of what you have written into your competency reports and query you whether what you write is actually being done and experiences by you, or are you just kind of copy pasting it from somewhere else. Based on the competencies, based on the experiences that you write inside, There will be questions asked which can be similar conditions or which can be diagonally opposite conditions. And the question would then come out as, how would you solve a situation which is different from the one that you have given? The point that is being made is, we appreciate what you have done, what all you are explaining, but if the condition was something different, how do you tackle it? There's no right or wrong answer. It's just an assessment of how would an individual respond in certain conditions. Because what eventually people are looking for is a leader, a person who can be an expert in the field going ahead. So take up a project, explain how you can do it, what you did better, and how you're going to attain it in future. Then there will be general discussions, questionings, which can be in the water and environment category, will be more related to water and environment. There may be questions which are supplementary to water and environment, such as safety questions. For example, if you're giving a project reference to say you have worked in, say, drainage and canals, what are the safety things that you would watch out for if you're entering a closed structure? So those kind of ancillary questions can also come inside. It is generally expected that you would be able to address the questions with some level of answers. Again, there's no right, there's no wrong, there's no 5 minutes, there's no 10 minutes. Just give an honest and how do you feel kind of a response. In the end, the last part always is about telling interviewers on any other aspect that you can add into your application process to let them have a holistic view of what all you have done and what all have you achieved. Now, that can be something that you have studied, something that you have done in your work experience, or it can be something outside. For example, if you are say a ham operator or radio operator, how does that help in improving communications in remote areas? That's something that you can add on and say it works well, especially in locations in countries which don't have a very good telecommunication network, which don't have a very good communication network at all. So do add inside to say how can things be done and what all is the extra that can be considered as part of your application. So I hope that this gives you some idea about the whole application process, how the membership goes. Of course, we'll be more than happy to share and network with interested people who would be coming in, who want to talk with certain chartered category people as part of the Young Water Professionals Network itself. The coverage for this is basically to let you know about the industry, what all is the water works, what all kind of people can come in, how you can grow, even if you want to move in a different direction within the sector, that's possible as well. And how do you have a long-term continued interaction with the relevant professional qualification, with the relevant growth to keep you interested and hooked on for the times ahead. The key takeaways that I would like to share with you is we have a community of interested, of dedicated water professionals within Singapore. It's very well supported by SWA. There are learnings possible from water leaders, and there are a host of them within each industry, within each sector, public sector, private sector, developers, contractors. Do look into joining into YWP so that you can get invited to events, to trainings and webinars. We would be more than happy to have you in our subscription list and get you introductions as per request, as per needs, so that you can engage with other people within the sector as well. It's quite wide. There are young water professionals, not just in water sector, there are professionals outside Singapore as well. International Water Association, International Desalination Association. So there's a huge potential for people to engage, for ideas to be shared out. And as we have done in a very brief manner is about career advisors. So we are looking to organize certain sharings to be done as well in the coming months on what kind of interview questions or what kind of companies look out for what kind of skill sets. Do watch out for it. If you're a member, of course, you'll get to know about such events in advance and you'll be invited right away. So I hope this sharing session has given some idea about where the industry is, given some idea about what kind of experiences, what kind of applications can be done, what kind of roles can you play, whether it's a niche role, whether it's a very generic role, and what kind of prospects and growth patterns would you have in the long term over here. Trends in environment, definitely technology is going to be the in thing, and efficiency in the market is definitely going to be there. So I do look forward to having more talks with most of you and further engagements in the times ahead. I'm open for questions. Please do feel free to send in questions on the chat group, and I'll be happy to answer it within the limited time that we have now. Thank you. Lisa?
Yeah, so now is the Q&A session. So if you have any questions to us verbally, you can just raise your hand. There's a little button at the bottom of your screen. So there, if you press it, then you'll be able to let us know that you want to speak, and we can further on to unmute you to speak. Yep. I think we have one question for Kay. So it is noted that the water industry is not retaining early professionals well, as most of junior engineers may leave this industry from early years. So how do we make this industry more attractive to young engineers and to increase the awareness among the students? Kay?
Okay, most engineers or most youngsters, like I mentioned, are not really aware of what are the potentials or what are the growth sectors that are available. What we're trying to do over here is let you know that it's not just about a specific industry or a specific company or a firm that you can get worked into. Even non-engineering graduates have a role to play outside their key remits. You can come in as electrical engineers, for example, and be a part of water treatment plants, because they are the people who will be getting and designing the supplies coming from substations, which is maintained by power grid, to the water treatment plant itself, and get the internal wiring layout done. How much of load can certain machines take? If you're having something which requires multiple breakouts, do you need a separate single line diagram? Do you need a licensed electrical worker to come inside and come out with the loads and get approvals? There's a role for everyone. If you're looking at mechanical engineers, what kind of pumps are we looking at when we want to pump water over certain heads? Those are the rules that can come inside. Penstock designs, for example, coming out with works within water treatment plant, works within, say, building infrastructure itself. What needs to be done for air ventilations? How do you ensure there's a certain amount of water within the system itself? At the same time, any industry, for a start, will have different starting points. In the end, everything will even out. And frankly, in Singapore or even worldwide, the trend is more towards sustainable development. It's more towards ensuring that infrastructure is benefiting the people. It's about holistic development. Therefore, the growth is there. It's just how and what way do you come in and contribute to the industry, and in return that will make you grow itself. Okay.
Thanks, Key. I think there's another question. You mentioned civil and mechanical engineers in your presentation. How about electrical engineers? So this one, I think I have to add a bit before Kay starts. I'm actually an electrical engineer myself. So I actually work for Mott McDonald Singapore. It's actually an engineering consultant. So what I do, my title is actually an electrical and instrumentation engineer. So there's, I think like Kay said, we have a lot of, it's a wide variety of jobs available out here in the water industry. So for electrical specifically, you can be a the more generalized electrical engineer doing things such as power system distribution, power system studies, or you can be more towards like SCADA. You can be a SCADA engineer, or you can be more towards instrumentations, doing stuff with PNIDs as well as sensors and others, because others are actually pretty specialized in the water or the wastewater industry. All right, so over to Kay. Do you have anything to add on?
Definitely, I agree with you, Vesu. Electrical engineers are an integral part of the industry, and together with civil and mechanical, it's basically the backbone. The growth is there, the scope is there. In fact, I work with electrical engineers on most of my projects, be it a drainage project, be it a plant project, be it even building projects. They have a role to play, and they are partners in this field itself, in this sector itself. So do join, do work together, and it will definitely grow for you.
Okay, we have another question from Pei. May I know what are the key advantages of becoming chartered? How much does it help to set us apart from other engineers in both local and international job market? Over to you, Kay.
Okay, Chartered Engineer is started by Institution of Engineers Singapore to complement the professional engineering program. As you would know, PE is mostly for civil, electrical, and mechanical, but then a gap has been identified in the sense that specialist works such as hydraulic designs, such as impact assessments, may not necessarily be sectors in which a civil engineer who's more focused towards structural can give insights. So it's a bit unfair to expect a person who's more keen on structures to also sign off on, say, an impact assessment report. Therefore, this program has been brought out. Now, how does it help to set you apart is you have a professional qualification which gives you that standing in the industry whereby you can speak and your words, your work done has weight coming from a peer recognized professional committee itself. In the times ahead, it is expected that chartered engineers will be taking up some of the load or some of the specialist works that are currently being handled by professional engineers. As you can see, geotechnical engineering has already been recognized by the government, by BCA, by IES, so that it's a specialist within the professional engineer of civil itself. It's a matter of time before chartered engineer gains a similar acceptance and recognition. People are already registering for it. People are already going through the application process, and the registry is building up as we speak. In the local market, definitely, as more projects are done, as more diverse work projects and activities are done, this will become important. In the international market, as we have more number of peoples locally, there would be at some point of time an agreement or an arrangement done within for a start in the ASEAN region whereby people can be co-recognized across borders in the same way as a chartered engineer from the UK is recognized in most Commonwealth countries. And why? And the reason for that is there's a history for them to work. There's a history for those people and the designs and the standards being used in most Commonwealth countries. So the idea is in Singapore, once the local chartered engineer has been built up. It can be used for reciprocal recognition across borders. For example, if you're working in, say, Vietnam in future, and there's a reciprocal working arrangement, recognition arrangement, if you're going over there, you can actually eventually, at some point of time, be able to sign off on projects over there itself. And it's help. It works in both ways. So yes, there's a growth for this professional qualification as well.
Okay, thanks, Kay, for that. Is there just a last call for any questions? If not, we will bring today's webinar to an end. Is there any more questions? All right, so lastly, I'll be posting a link to a short feedback form in the chat box right about now. All right. So we will really appreciate it if you guys can provide some feedbacks or views on what type of webinars or topics of interest that you will be wanting to see from the SWA or YWP or water industry in the whole. So if there are topics that are exactly not our forte, so we will also know who we should turn to. So like Kay mentioned, we do have a very wide and diverse network over here in the YWP and SWA who are here to support or help Singapore build up a vibrant and dynamic water industry. So with that, on behalf of Kay, the whole of YWP and SWA, we thank you for taking your time off your busy schedule to attend this webinar. Enjoy your weekend and of course, take care. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.